Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here, especially now that we're limited to just about 50, so we're at 48, 47, somewhere around there, so that's good. That's just a sign of the times and what we're doing. Yacht Club always does a great job. Thank you very much up here, all the Yacht Club folks. Appreciate it. Lico is sporting his name tag. Lico, always, you do what none of us in this room could do. Thank you very much. Admiral Lestage, Helen, good to see you guys tonight. Thank you for being here with us. Everybody's glasses should be charged. We got some toast coming up, so if you haven't done that, you've got a couple of seconds to make that happen with a little water and a little wine, and we'll be okay. Now, if I could ask you to please stand. The only guy in the room who's got a tie on because he's running for public office. Our devoted chaplain mumbles.
Thank you, Flight Captain. I just got this tie in the mail today. I'm excited. I'm in full uniform. So, no pun intended, but I'm going to be winging this prayer, okay? If you could bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for this day and all the days in the past that you provided us with health, with the pleasure of company of our fellow aviators and our families. Thank you for providing this beautiful place to live here in Pensacola and our great Shangri-La flight and the camaraderie that we all enjoy being part of this organization. Please, Lord, look over all those that are in harm's way today, defending our nation and our interests overseas. Please, Lord, bring comfort to the families of those Marines lost in the amphibious track accident in San Diego. In addition, please rest the soul of Commander Earl Crisp, who passed away this past weekend. We ask that you protect our families, protect our nation, protect our president and elected leaders. We hope and pray that we bring honor to you each and every day through our words and actions. And in your holy name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Flight Captain,
Mr. Provost Marshal.
I'd like to propose a toast to the departed in water.
To our departed brothers and sisters.
Mr. Provost, how about Mr. Flight Captain?
Mr. Provost Marshal.
I'd like to propose a toast to the President of the United States.
To the President. All right. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you, Mumbles. It's a real pleasure to be here, obviously, to introduce our guests and and everybody that's here. Anybody new that has not been introduced? I don't think so since the last time we checked. But I'm going to turn the microphone over to a very, very good friend of mine, Rios, who have been in more trouble than we can possibly admit, but we're not saying anything here, at least publicly. But Butch and I go way back. Everybody knows he owns Wings. He's done a great job out there. He's got some introductions to make. Butch?
I usually don't even need a microphone because I got a mouth. As a world-famous fighter Rio, I've been all around the world, and I am actually very fired up about inviting people to join this organization. And I brought some folks with me tonight, and I'd like you to welcome them and hope that you would embrace them and ask them and invite them to be with us as members. First is, can everybody hear me? I don't like these things. Yeah. So I got Jake Stenquist. Jake, stand up. Jake, and what's his call sign? Jake from State Farm. What are you wearing, Jake? Khakis. He's from Hudson, Massachusetts, and Bowdoin College. And I firmly believe, after having worked with him over the past few weeks, many weeks that he's been training and working with us, he's going to be a F-35C pilot in the Marine Corps, and he'll be bringing glory back to the old days. So that's what I'm hoping for Jake, and I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Next guy is Hunter Holden. Charles, we call him Chunks. He flew with Bad Bob, and they did some unusual attitudes in the first time they were out. He got a little accelerated learning and some of the stuff on himself. From Louisville, Kentucky, went to the University of Louisville. Wants F-18s, but he's going to be an F-35 pilot. I know he is. It's good to have two Marine Corps fighter pilots. They're future fighter pilots, but I already can tell. These guys, if anybody ever had any doubt, you should come by my store and see the stuff and the work that they do every day. We live in the weirdest times. Everything is in flux, and these guys are here with their nose to the grindstone every day, learning and working very hard, and I'm very proud of them. I get choked up proud of them. Hunter comes from a military family. His dad was also a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. He was actually in the Navy before that, so I'm very proud. Don't get me started on checkered past, because you're next. All right. Please, everybody, welcome Thomas Lucas. Please stand up, Tom. Call sign D-Day. And his beautiful wife, Diane. And I'd like to tell you a lot about her because she's the important one in the family. D-Day is a unique person in our midst. He started out as a Rio. He was a backseater in the F-14, and then he made a transition to pilot later on. And that's when he went through that transition. He was down in Kingsville, and that's when he met Diane. VF-143, VF-142, VF-21, and VF-103. 3,000 plus F-14 hours, 982 traps. And, 528 Rio traps or whatever. He's got most of his traps as a pilot, so that counts. Air Force War College, strike on the Stennis. Delta Airlines, 2007 to 2018. He's retired, lives in Gulf Breeze with his beautiful wife, Diane. Where are they from? I knew I wrote that down. Oh, Tom is from North Salem, New York, Stony Brook College, or University. And Diane's hometown is Houma, Louisiana. And you are a graduate of the Louisiana State University. Go Tigers! I'd ask that you guys would please give them a warm welcome tonight. After this is over, just chat them up. Thank you,
D-Day and Diane.
DJ and Diane, you are overqualified as the Daedalians. Yeah. We'll see if we can't make that happen here before it's much too longer. Excellent. Excellent. Outstanding.
Kathy's right, I don't even need this. Next is Dan Bad Bob McCourt, and he's got some fantastic introductions to make.
Thank you, Dink. So for all of you folks, I have the pleasure tonight to have the Lamb family with us. I'll start with Cadet Lamb. So Cadet David Lamb is, of course, our honoree for the evening. We'll hear more from him in a bit, but I just want you to get an eyeball on him. He's the guy in the uniform with all the stuff on it, having well deserved it. I'll go into more of that later. Thank you, David. Along with us, we have David's lovely mother, Lucretia, his father, Anthony, and his grandfather, Clark Hall. Anthony is in the construction business. He's, for those guys, most of us know Darth. So Anthony's had the unfortunate circumstance to work with Darth. So he knows what it's like to shoulder a heavy burden. But nonetheless, he is here and has done well. I have to mention that Clark, former Navy guy, 1955, went through boot camp and ended up as a machinist mate and working up at Whiting Field, and has quite a bit of time working with T-28s. Ended up in the crash and salvage crew up there. So as a crash and smash guy, knows full well what we can do to airplanes when we put our mind to it. So please welcome the Lamb family. We'll hear more from David later.
Thanks, Bad Bob, and welcome here. Before we start to plate our dinner, I do want to recognize one more time, because we did last time we were here. Where'd Mumbles run off to? Stand up. He took that tie off. I might mention, and of course, Joe Kinnigo and Ken Pyle had a big play in this thing. But just yesterday, Mumbles was awarded the Brereton Award by the Florida Air Force Association, which is about a dozen chapters here in Florida, for all his work in the Chappie James birthday celebration and the naming of the bridge and so on and so forth. So congratulations, Mumbles. Well done. That's right. That's right. The Stanley Cup for great guys that do great things in the state of Florida. So congratulations. And finally, instead of just words, if you want to, I'll put it up here on the table. This is the plaque we got for being the top dog in the Daedalians in 2019. We will put this plaque in the Daedalian Lounge at the Flight Academy, because we certainly, that's the right place for it, but we certainly want to see those kids and other folks who take tours through the Flight Academy to see not only is it the Daedalian Lounge, but you got a pretty average flight here in Pensacola. We know how to do things right. So as we hopefully welcome Steffi McWhirter here, and hopefully welcome D-Day, you're joining the #1 squad. So thank you very much. A lot of good work and a lot of hard work went into this. Okay, time to enjoy dinner. I'll be back with you shortly after one more toast.
Mr. Flight Captain,
Mr. Provost Marshal.
I would like to propose a toast to our distinguished and honored guests, the Marines, and all the other ones that won and participated in our organization.
To our honored guests and to our active duty here. Good luck, gentlemen. Here. While Mary and Ruby are here, these are two angels from the yacht club who will help us here. Put them together for Mary and Ruby that are doing it here. Thank you, ladies. God bless you. They've already been told that no matter what happens, whether the water level in here gets 5 feet, they can't take their masks off. So thank you very much again for doing what you're doing. All right, we've got a few things to do here. First thing is going to hand the microphone off to our scholarship chairman, Captain Terry Burt, who's doing a great job taking the mantra over from Don Quinn. But T-Burt, all yours.
Hey, I just want to give you a little update on scholarships, and that's a part of what makes this flight so great, and the award-winning status we've got. Not only the flight training that Bad Bob's doing, but on the scholarship side. I think Mike shared with me, I think it's somewhere south of 50% of the flights across the country are active, both with the flight training and the scholarships, and we've got both going, and we're successful with it. Just give you a quick update. A couple of the kids that one coming out of high school, one is Chris Gibson. Both of them have won continuing scholarships. They're both still maintaining their eligibility with their ROTC and their grades and all. And they both won ongoing scholarships. Chris is at Florida State, electrical engineering degree, entering his 5th year, so he'll be wrapping up. Clint Heinrich is over at Embry-Riddle, becoming a sophomore, aerospace engineering. both doing great and continuing to work towards becoming military aviators, which is what we're all about. Our high school winner this year for the matching scholarship is out of one of the best junior ROTC units we have in the area up at Pace. They've got a real strong unit, and he's an award winner up there. He's a leader, really setting the example. He's going to be going off to Penn State, chemical engineering. His pop is Colonel. His name's Justin Pavelko. Colonel Pavelko is currently the deputy wing commander up at Trey Wing 5 up at Whiting, and I think in about a month he's taken over as the commander. Call sign Ivan, I believe he's a Cobra guy, and Justin's granddad is with the Daedalians out of Dallas, Air Force bomber pilot, B-52s, B-1s, FB-111s. I don't know. He kept going on. He's flown all kinds of stuff. But so quite a tradition in that family, and Justin's going to keep it going. Great kid. They couldn't be here tonight, obviously, with the active duty. Ivan couldn't be here to join us, so Mike and I drove up to Whiting last week, and we got some grip and grins and some pics for the Daedalian flyer, and that'll be coming up, in probably the next issue. So anyway, the program's still going well, and appreciate y'all's support.
Thanks, T-Bert. The matching scholarship that Pavelko got, Cadet Pavelko, who's on his way to Penn State. Matter of fact, today, I think his parents had to deliver him today. We had to pony up $2,000 from the flight. The Daedalians the Daedalian Foundation matched that to the tune of $4,000. So as soon as T-Bert mails off this check from us, very shortly, he's going to have $6,000 in his account to help him out at Penn State. Me being on the national board, obviously visibility on the foundation and the foundation's account and how they're doing, because like T-Bert said, only about half the flights are actively involved in these scholarships, and they're always pushing the flight captains, hey, find people, let's help these folks out. Well, obviously, we don't have too much of a problem here with these dynamic JROTC schools. And then, of course, the Egan continuing scholarships is we only have to pony up $500 from the flight per year for Mr. Henricks and Mr. Gibson. Now, they, being the foundation, pony up in excess of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, depending on how well the foundation is doing. I mean, what is wrong with that? Nothing at all. So obviously it's just a lot of work that involves in it, and T-Bert does all the paperwork and everything. Obie writes the checks, hands them to T-Bert. Okay, we're aviators, make it easy. We figure this out. So thank you very much, T-Bert. Appreciate what you're doing. Okay, Bad Bob gets to have way too much fun here in talking about Mr. Lamb and his family here. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dink. Okay, I've got the great good fortune of shepherding our Daedalian flight training program. I got to remind you, this year it's done a little differently because Daedalian National decided not to participate. There were some fears about exposure and that sort of thing. So I'm going to acknowledge real quickly that this organization stood up, and in spite of the fact that Daedalian National elected not to provide a Daedalian flying training program, Shangri-La Flight 21 said, oh no, we will do it on our own. And in fact, we did. There are a number of you sitting here who offered some generous support for that effort, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, sincerely. So instead of having no cadets in the Daedalian flying training program this year, we have two. And tonight we're here to honor David Lamb, who has already soloed. So let me backtrack just a tad. First, you heard the name Clint Heinrichs. He was one of our very first Daedalian flying training soloists who was just talked about for a scholarship. So as I look over at young David and go, whatever university you end up in, don't forget there's other wells in which to dip down the road, Mom and Dad. There's an opportunity that there's perhaps more money available. The other is that we looked at our selectees from previous years. So last year, as we always do, we selected 2 primary and 2 alternates. And in fact, last year we picked a third because this flight again stepped up with extra dollars and funded a third cadet for Daedalian flying training. So we took our 2 alternates from last year, David Lamb being one of those youngsters, and then Eva Miller being the other. So David has surged forth, done great stuff. Got to take just a minute to brag on him in front of his parents here. So David, first of all, is attending Northview High School. You heard that earlier, and he's a rising senior. So when they go back to school here shortly, in whatever form that's going to be, we think it's in class, he is going to run their program, and in fact, he is going to be the battalion CO for their unit. It is a marvelous unit, and Captain Charlie Code previously was the CO, and Charlie Code just recently retired. But David has stepped up, is going to be their battalion commander, and is doing great, good things. As the alternate last year, he and I had a chance to fly together a couple flights, and it became immediately apparent that this young man had not only the aptitude, the interest, the talent, and capability that he needs to be in a military airplane, and of course, being a Navy guy that I am, happily he was predisposed to go that direction anyway, and so we've gone down that road. But I'm here to say that I'm thrilled to congratulate David for his success, both in his unit. He has every intent to apply to the Naval Academy. He wants to go to a service school. He wants to go military, naval aviation, and he wants to be a guy flying pointy-nose, fast-moving things with afterburners. So in whatever shape that airplane is in, be that an F-35 or an F-18, that's what he sees in his future, and that's, of course, what we all hope for him. So, David, if you would, I'm going to call you up here.
I suggest the Marine Corps.
So, on behalf of our flight, as is tradition for us, we present a solo certificate. So, in David's case, out at Ferguson Airport, where we do our training, and the folks do their good work, here on the 30th of July, and I'll read it for you. So, Shangri-La Flight 21 proudly presents the Daedalian Foundation, Brigadier General David Lee Tex Hill Daedalian Flying Training Solo Flight Certificate for his certificate, and in this case to Cadet David A. Lamb from the NJROTC unit for his safe completion of his first solo flight over at Ferguson Airport on 30 July 2020. So David, congratulations to you. Now, as I warned him, you don't get anything for free. You always sing for your supper, as it were. So he's gonna provide a couple of words on his experience and give you guys some perspective. Think about yourself in his shoes just a couple years ago. So David, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Cap. Well, before I start, I'd like to thank everyone for being here and all you've done to contribute for this outstanding program you have here. And I'd like to thank Captain and all the folks at Ferguson for everything they've done. But like you said, I'm Cadet David Lamb from Northview High School. I'm a rising senior. This year we are the commanding officer of the unit, 105 cadets, so I'm really proud of that and everything we've done there. But I'd like to give a special thanks to Captain Charlie C. Code, like you mentioned earlier. He's the one that introduced me to the program here to apply, and he's a great role model, outstanding guy. And to get through what the program's offered me, I like to sum it up in two phases. One would be a preparatory phase. So during the preparatory phase is last year, whenever I was selecting for the alternate for this program, I wanted to be a sponge and pick up everything I could. And through the weeks of flight training and ground school it was, that we did, I tried to absorb everything, and they had some great leaders and individuals out there at Ferguson, and also some that are part of the Daedalians here as well. And they're all great examples and role models to me, and it's what I want to do in the future. So I see myself going that path, and it's really inspiring, and it's also highly motivating for me. During that phase, I got around a little over 6 hours of flight training with Captain, and like he said, he told me that he doesn't see anything. If I want to pursue a career in naval aviation, nothing could stop me, as long as I wanted it, and that's where I want it. That's where I want to be. So that really set down a base foundation in phase 1. In the second phase, more of the execution phase, I got picked up for the program as a main this time. And I really set that as a goal. I said, I'm going to make this a great application. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to be a part of. I had a friend that went through the program. He told me all about it, and he had a great experience. And I said, that's what I want to do. And I did it. Yeah, it was great. And so to begin with, I'd like to thank Scott Swanson. He's my flight instructor. He's a really great guy, definitely very thorough. Every time I went up with him, I could see the learning curve. I could see I'd be getting better in pattern work, just flying in general, and that really boosted my confidence. And he was very thorough with emergency procedures and just basic flights and everything that was necessary. And I really enjoyed him as an instructor and really had a great time. Now I have over 20 hours of instructor flight time. So that was really great. And leading up to the solo, just before the solo, I was honestly just ready to get it over with. By the time we actually got to do it, we ended up canceling it about a week and 1 day due to just bad weather. It was just a bad time. And the day before the solo, we canceled, and I got up the next morning, I said, this is the day. I'm going to do it today. And I came down and saw a few clouds, and I was like, okay, just go that way a little bit. And as soon as I came down here, it was perfect weather, a little light breeze down the runway out of the south, and that's just the way I like it. I like runway 18, so I was like, today's the day. So me and Scott went up for a little bit, and we did some touch and goes. It's like, hey man, you're doing phenomenal. I'll get out right now. Let's go. So as soon as we got all the paperwork and stuff situated, took off, and I was ready to go. I had just enough nerves to keep me on that edge, and took off, got in the traffic pattern. I still had those nerves going a little bit, so I came in for the first time, and I was like, this looks a little high. So the first time, I don't know if it was the nerves or maybe something was wrong. So I flew around. It didn't feel as good. But I told myself, I'm going to set this next one up, and it's going to be perfect. It's going to be the best one yet. And that first landing, when I came in, I was like, oh man, this is great. As soon as you feel the wheels touch down, it was smooth as butter. And it was nice. The first one was great. But I think the first one got me a little too cocky. So on the second one, I came in, and on the flare out, I pulled a little bit too much up. And I started ballooning a little bit, and I hit the ground about 2 times, and finally on the 3rd or 4th time, all the wheels came on. So, but I definitely took notes. So the 3rd time wasn't as good as the first, but it definitely felt good. I set up in the pattern, and that's a good idea. But the 3rd one, it wasn't as good as the first, but it was still spot on. It was where I wanted it to be. And I felt really confident in that, and I really want to emphasize how grateful I am to all the Daedalians that's contributed to this experience. I'll cherish forever. And all the people that's helped in the learning environment at Ferguson. They really have a great staff there. And everyone here as well that's helped this happen. So I'd like to thank you all. And also I'd like to thank the staff here. That was a wonderful meal and everything that's contributed here. So thank you. Turn it back over to Captain. Go Navy.
David, again, I just want to let you folks put an eyeball on our future. We have people just like this coming up for our future. Thank you. Good luck to you.
David, you're guilty of making every pilot in here remember his solo, his first solo. Well done. You brought back some good memories and everything else. And of course, everybody in here knows that without mom and dad and granddad, you're not up here. So mom and dad and granddad, thank you very much. Good stuff. Don Quinn wanted me to mention one thing, since he couldn't be here tonight, about the about Tailhook in coming up here in a couple of weeks. It'll be on 11th and 12th of September, and they're going to do it virtual out of the museum. It's all about Sinatra and where Sinatra came from, where they are now, and you know where they're going, and everything else. Of course, where these two Marines are headed deeply into the Sinatra program. So, going to be worth watching. It's on the tailhook.net, and it'll all be the virtual, program. Next year, which really factors into a lot of the experience in this room, particularly it's hopefully COVID will be lifted its lid here and we can get 80 or 90 folks in here, is they're going to talk about the Vietnam experience, particularly Rolling Thunder, and of course the linebacker operations. So there were more than a few folks involved in this flight that had a little bit to do with that. So that's going to be a pretty interesting hook event. But anyway, just wanted to pass that on. But anyway, obviously one of the best things that we do here is induct new members into the order. And it's my pleasure to review this before we bring our newest member up here. The Daedalian mission, as everybody knows, is to be an advocate for air and space power and honor those who flew and fly in defense of our nation. The objectives of the Order of Daedalians: support the total force, to educate all to the advantages of air and space power. We're going to talk a little bit about space tonight, thanks to Nice Guy. To promote the rewards of careers in military aviation. David, these two Marines right here, a lot of rewards out there, a lot of good stuff. To honor the legacy of our founder members and all who have flown in defense of our nation. To encourage improvements in flight safety, weapons development, combat support, recognize exceptional performance by military aviators. Kathy and I were just out at Whiting dropping off a couple of plaques to the #1 dog in their helicopter training, which will happen in their winging tomorrow. We take care of those folks. And recruit new flight members to perpetuate the mission and traditions of the order. D-Day, on you. Stiffy, on you. To make it happen. So, Colonel Howard Walton, would you please join me at the podium? And I would ask everybody to please stand. Here we go, prime time. Would you please raise your right hand? In the presence of God and the Shangri-La flight of the Daedalians, will you hold close and be worthy of the trust and confidence of all Daedalians, place nation above self, and forever abide by the tenets of the Order of Daedalians? Congratulations. Don't go too far, too fast. Right. Congratulations. That's right. That's exactly what it is. Grip and grin. Here we are. Okay. Welcome aboard, Howard. Glad to have you with us. Okay, this is the really, really fun part. Nice guy. I'd never called him Jim. I don't think I've ever referred to you as that. Not that it matters. Nice guy. That's right. He's just a nice guy. Nice guy is a native of Philadelphia. He went to Penn State, class of 71, got his wings in 72, goes through the rag at Miramar, like a few of us have in this room, learns how to operate everything in the backseat of the Phantom, and off to VF 161 on the mighty Midway. Nobody wanted to go to Midway back then, but they did, and they got more flight time than everybody else. That was good. He comes back, he becomes the instructor at VF 121, and as Bad Bob and I can attest, his reputation preceded himself. Arguably, at that time, He was the best Rio in a Phantom to teach and tactics and anything else in the back of that airplane. That was just his reputation. And he did a great job there. He left the 121, went to VF-213, transitioned to the Tomcat, came back to Miramar. He went to the reserves, and he transitioned, went to work for Cubic for a little while, became a program manager there, and then NASA drafted him. They saw his potential, and here he goes off to NASA at Houston. He becomes a program manager, big bucks, north of $20 million, but he won't tell you that. With the Mir program, and also with the International Space Station and the Russians' involvement in the space station, and resurrecting the WB-57 from Davis-Monthan, and everybody knows where that is, the dreaded boneyard, after 40 some odd years sitting there sucking sand and making that happen. But they picked the right guy to do the right job. Now he's going to tell us the truth about the Russians and the space program, despite what Captain Shepard told us about a year ago. He's going to give us the facts. It is so much fun for me to give you a nice guy to talk about this. You got the microphone.
That's going to be tough to follow. Now, Shep and I did work together early on in this, and he went down a different path because he was an astronaut. And so he then got to fly on the International Space Station as the first commander of the vehicle, somewhere down the road. Now, what I'm going to talk about took place starting 28 years ago, and for me, ran to about 22 years ago. I was called out of nowhere and picked to be the program manager for the Shuttle Mir program. And initially, I moved from San Diego to Washington, D.C. They wanted somebody with operational experience with their flesh in between the gears to understand how you deal with high-risk elements. And they wanted somebody that had experience in program management in big regard. Now, that doesn't mean I was a designer. It means I needed to make certain that the designers and everybody talked and the interfaces worked and things like that. And so, originally, the Shuttle Mir program was going to be NASA flies a cosmonaut on a space shuttle flight. Then the Russians launch a U.S. astronaut in a Soyuz vehicle to the Mir space station, with the astronaut to have a 30-day time frame, 30 to 45 days. It's a little tough sometimes predicting when you can get there because of weather and other conditions. And then we would launch the space shuttle and rendezvous and dock with the Mir space station and have 1 week of joint ops between all the scientific stuff that was on Mir and would have been in the space lab that would have been in the bay of the shuttle. This was 1992. In January of 93, there was a change. The Clinton Gores took over, and the George H.W. Bush, ideas went away. It created an issue in that the chief of staff for the president was a guy by the name of Leon Panetta. And Panetta did not like NASA in any way, shape, or form. I don't know why, but it's like he stepped in NASA one day and couldn't get off his shoe. In this interim, the Space Station Freedom was under development and design, and they were extremely behind schedule. And when you're behind schedule in a government contract, it means you're over budget because, you get $2.5 billion a year to build something, and you build 35% of it instead of the full thing. Well, now you're another $2.5 billion plus behind, and it's just like ragweed. It shows up everywhere. You can't get rid of this stuff. So President Clinton assigns Vice President Gore space stuff. And it's one of the easy throwaways. You know, it's a $15, $18 billion a year organization. It gets a lot of highlights, but you don't have to do much work. But at the same time, the Clintons didn't have a plan for major international dealings. And so some horse trading started to take place. The mark that the White House gave NASA to be able to pull off the International Space Station was really low. And it was to the tune of probably $6 or $8 billion low for what had to get done. So we got the great idea of we have the Russians on the hook for this first mission. Maybe we can do something and invite the Russians into the International Space Station group. Now, that didn't bother us that much, but the other internationals, like the French and the Italians and everybody else, was seeing their thunder going to get stolen. So we had a whole lot of horse trading behind the scene. So I'm asked to bring 30 Russian space people from Moscow to Washington, D.C. for 2 weeks of meetings. It's my first interaction with the real Russians. Up until then, we had a weekly telecon, 6 o'clock in the morning on Mondays, because there's 9 hours difference between Moscow and the East Coast. We had working groups, and the working groups were built around the same things that we had during the Apollo-Soyuz program. And wouldn't you know it, that just about everybody on the Russian side of the equation was somebody that worked Apollo-Soyuz. And we had maybe 3 people still left from that time frame, which was a 1975 evolution. Guy Gardner, who was my immediate boss, retired Air Force colonel, test pilot, and astronaut, and I are fragged to go out to Dulles to meet these 30 Russians and put them on buses and take them to their hotel. Well, the first thing I notice is that all 30 of them got off the plane, and not one of them had a piece of luggage or anything to pick up. Now, it's August, and it's hot in Washington, D.C. So you can guess how odoriferous closed meetings are. I'd be wearing one of those COVID things, if I'd have had them, This was something else. But I would say 75% of the Russians that got off that plane all spoke English or could read it. That's the way it was. And so we had the big meeting of the big overall thing, and we told them what we wanted, and then they told us what they wanted to give, and so it broke down into the different elements and how they could help us. Well, one of the main things they could do was we could use their type service module of the Mirror. And then there were those that said, well, why don't we use Mirror? Well, Mirror was now about 10 years old, and it had some leaks of coolant, ethylene glycol and things like that. And it's like, no, we're not going to tie another $10 billion to something that's already leaking oil in the garage. So we started so that's August of 93. And the interactions continued, and we took a group of people over in October. Now, there's the White House. This is when Yeltsin and everything was going to hell. And that's the administrator, and George Abbey, who was the center director at the Johnson Space Center, in front of who do you call it? Tomb. At the Lenin's tomb, Jesus. Yeah, he's got a really ugly polka dot tie on, let me tell you. And that's St. Basil's Cathedral. It was, so then we go there, they come here, evolution about every 3 months. And we had to get the internationals in the same room and have them bless what was going to happen because, as I say, we were stealing their cheese as they saw it. So this turned into one of the ways we were trying to appease the Russians was to keep their space things under control. And so NASA decided, the administrator decided that they'd pull out $100 million a year for 4 years. And so I now went from not just being the program manager for the Shuttle Mir, but I was in charge of the contract and the negotiations that had to take place with this. The Russians do not have any way of at least at this time, didn't have any way of collecting costs, so they never knew what anything cost. They just shoveled rubles at things until they got what they wanted. And, it's truly bizarre. They don't have the overheads, the salaries, et cetera, of the people aren't paid as much because they're fed at the organization that they work. And so they don't have to buy food, and the borscht is free. Some of it was actually good. And so I lost my train of thought on that one.
The borscht is free.
Oh, yeah. And so what I do is I get 4 contractor types and the 5 people or 6 people that were working for me. And I have them go through everything we did in Gemini. What did X cost in Gemini across the board? And so we took the cost that we knew we had spent, and then we accelerated those through inflation to now dollars. So that we would have an idea of what it's going to cost, because it's, bending the metal and all that stuff is pretty much the same. And so I get these numbers and I say, no, so what is my metric of how do I convert our US dollars to their rubles? So I looked at the numbers and I figured out that if I divided them by 10, I was right in the ballpark. And so I had a number to bolster myself in to be able to back them off of their position on whatever X or Y cost. And they had no idea how I did it. But we used analog stuff from a time frame that we knew, and we moved it forward in time and inflation and all that stuff, and came up with it. Now, the Russians thought that they'd get $400 million for just, drinking a vodka with you. But, it was my head that's in the vice here, and so I have to deal with them and placate our people, because all of my folks want everything that Walmart has. I mean, they want it right now, and they want everything. I had to space it out over the 4-year period. I had to pay, now the Shuttle Mir program expanded to up to 10 dockings to the Mir space station. We would need 3 additional docking mechanisms so that we had one for each one of the shuttles. We paid for the Shuttle Mir first one, the first docking mechanism, we paid them $17 million. And that's because Rockwell was teaching the Russians how to gouge us. And I shit you not. And so we got the first one. They did a good job. But since I'm going to do it in bulk, and the other one was a one-off, I mean, I'm kicking all the cans I can, I said, well, you're going to have economy of scale here. You set it up, and we get one a year till we have what we need and all that stuff. And those are going to go and actually be used on the International Space Station. And then they had some modules that we wanted. As I said, we liked their service module. And they had another thing called the FGB. and it's a space tug. Basically, it was a fuel tank with thrusters, and that was the second thing launched. We needed that to get up for the International Space Station so that we had a way of controlling the stack until it was built out, because everything doesn't come directly in line, for center of gravity and all that. You have to. It's so intricate. It's too hard to explain. But so that stuff, I put down payments on that to get that stuff moving so that it would be there for when we were going to have our elements starting to be ready. It was a very entailed evolution. The negotiation for all of this took about 6 weeks. I went over to Russia for 2 weeks to explain the contract the RFP, request for proposal. I mean, they're looking at this thing, and of course, everything that has the U.S. government, it has all the boilerplate of bullshit that you can't imagine. It's beyond description. And they're looking at that, and I said, just rip that out. Just rip that out, because that stuff's all happening on your side, and I don't care whether you wear steel-toed shoes, or not. Whether people lose fingers, it doesn't bother me. I just want the hardware. So that's a shuttle. That's the day before it launched. I forget which one that was. That's Baikonur. That's the launch site where the Russians launch all their Soyuz that go into orbit. This is a cosmonaut on Mir. On our first mission that we rendezvoused with Mir, we went to 37 feet. They know exactly how far they were away. Don't ask me how, but we had those kinds of things. And we stayed in that position for about an hour and a half, and then did a fly around a little farther away. Jim Weatherby, I don't know if any of you guys knew him in the Navy, he's an A-7 driver, was the commander on that mission. And we flew Vladimir Titov, a cosmonaut. Now, Titov, this was his fourth flight. His first flight, they got down to 0 on the count, and the Soyuz shuddered, shook, and that was when they jettisoned themselves, took the capsule and blew themselves off, and the rest of the vehicle blew up. They landed about 2 kilometers from that. His second mission, he gets launched, he goes up there to dock, and evidently the shroud came off too early, and he lost the radar that was out there for the docking, and so they had a blown docking. He came back right away on that one. The third mission, he and Musa Manarov are up there for 366 days. And that was the first really, really long duration flight. And we learned a lot of things, and it happened to us when we had our Skylab, in that they went, I think, 28 days, 45 days, 60 days. Well, the 60-day crew felt like they were being overrun with stuff from the ground, and they didn't talk to the ground for 2 days, Well, Manarov and Titov get in some kind of a pissing contest, and they don't talk to each other for 2 months. I mean, but these are the things that happen when people are under COVID stuff. I mean, you're kept in the same little box the entire time. Now, I'll let you know, here's a fact for you. Today is the anniversary of us letting the Apollo 11 crew out of quarantine after 17 days and stuff. So it can happen. We can get out, but it might take 3 weeks. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Oh, travel. In our infinite wisdom, we have travel rules for civil servants. Things that say that if the flight is over 8 hours, you can fly in business class. Nah, they waived all that. We were in steerage. I don't know how many kneecaps I lost from carts going down while you were asleep. It was horrible. But from Houston, from me leaving my house to me getting to the hotel in Moscow was 20 hours. And and so we would take off out of Houston Intergalactic there, Bush, at 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon. We normally flew KLM over and would go into the Netherlands at Schiphol. And we'd get in there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and our connecting flight to Moscow would be at 9 o'clock, and we would land in Moscow at about 3:30 local time. It'd take us an hour to get our bags and get through customs and money. They're interested in how much cash you have, and almost everything's just written in Cyrillic. I mean, you look at this thing, you know, it's like, the hell is this? You know, and form, you know. So we finally figured that out, and then we get on our shuttle bus. It's an hour to the hotel. So you were one whipped person at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. But if you went to sleep then, you're going to wake up at midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're not going back to sleep again. So you would try and force yourself to stay up to maybe 9:30. It was horrible. They finally started giving us a couple of sleeping pills, and I would take one the first night. When I woke up, I would take a sleeping pill, and then I could make it to make my 9 o'clock showtime for the lift to wherever the meeting was, and then use it the next night, and then save one for maybe the flight home. It was hard on you. The other problem was you needed visas, and you got to go through the Russian embassy, and their bowl of rice doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing. And so you're at their mercy unless you can get the higher-ups to send something to the Russian embassy in D.C. I've seen them pick up our passports at 10 o'clock in the morning and have them back to with our visas at 2:30 in the afternoon, and then fly out of, we had a Gulfstream 3 at the time, and it was one of these things. Friday afternoon at 5:30, they decide they want to go to Moscow on Monday. It's like, Jesus, okay. And it was a mess, but it got done, and we got there. And in fact, this is when Bill Shepard and I first got to Russia. We're looking out the window at 11 o'clock in the morning and looking at Russia, and we look at each other and say, you know, I thought if I would be over this kind of land, I'd at least have some ordnance to drop. So it had its ups and downs, and I'll tell you what, I'll open up for some questions if anybody has them. Otherwise, I'll just get out of the way, you know. Anything else, Master? Well, the big takeaway was, in spite of what the people in Houston think, there were other people who knew how to operate a space station better than them. And the whole gist of this, especially the multiple missions to Mir, was to be able to work cyclic ops. You know, there's a lot of people can, you know, have a boat and do things, but if you don't have it done correctly and multiple times, et cetera, you don't know how to spend your time, use your forces, and what rule tools do you need? And you know, one of the most basic things was our side could never decide on what kind of an inventory system they have. I'm going, you know, many years ago, I took a tour of an airline engine refurb place right at the end of the runway at Miramar. And this was 1982 maybe. And what amazed me was they knew where every part was for that engine at any given time, and which cycle it was in, which bin it was in. They had a barcode thing that was on the tag that went with whatever gizmo it was, and what box it was in, and so everybody knew. And they're trying to invent something different. Yes. What's that now? Oh, yeah, on the first trip over, we got into the hotel about 11:30 in the morning, showered, and we had a 2 o'clock afternoon meeting. And for 7 of the 9 of us, that meant we were pretty much going to go back to the hotel at 5 o'clock. And Dan Golden and George Abbey were going to have further meetings with the head of the Russian Space Agency, a guy by the name of Yuri Koptev. And we were staying in the Radisson Slavinskaya Hotel. That's a mouthful, but at least it was owned by Radisson, which was why we were there. And we decided to all meet down in the lobby by the lobby bar, and they had a square bar, a good-sized thing, and there was a lot of different chairs and sofas and things like that. And so we're pretty much lined up in an L, and I'm in the far corner, and I can see the one corner of the bar over here and another corner of a bar over here. There was nothing that was going to sit here because they'd be looking away from us. But the guy on the corner and the guy on the corner, every time I would look in each direction, the guy's head would turn. And, you know, it's one of these, and I'm going, this is kind of strange. So after a couple of cocktails, we walked down the hallway. There were 3 restaurants there, and so we're looking at the menus. And we look at each one of them, and we just move, and we pick the same one, and we just get seated. And I no sooner sit down than the maitre d' of this place says, "There's a phone call for you." I said, "What?" I said, "There's a phone call for you." Kidding. And it just points to the wall, and there's a phone over there. I pick up the phone, and it was for me. He knew exactly who he was. He didn't ask anybody. We didn't tell anybody what restaurant we were going to be in. So, I mean, now, but the good news, I mean, now that you know that they can find you, when I'm in charge of $100 million a year, and the Russian Space Agency's total budget in their government is $20 million, I am the guy that has the hammer. And so they didn't get paid unless I approved it. And so the one head of NPO Energia, a guy by the name of Yuri Semyonov, used to call me, "My little capitalist, how are you today?" Yeah, I'm going, "I don't know, but my wallet's full." And so, you know, it was, you know, the guy on the right of me, he was the White House guy. He was from OSTP, the Office of Science Technology Policy, and I'd have to deal with him to deal with the vice president. And as I say, that's Lenin's tomb, and the center director and the head of NASA. That's the Kremlin and its wall, and that's St. Basil's. And it was cold. That was cold. Now, the amazing thing about Moscow is that the snows that you get up through like the end of October are all pretty heavy. And after that, it's just light sprinkling because the moisture has all been sucked out of the air from where it was coming from. And so the humidity in a hotel room in the winter with the heat was like 0. And I used to get there and turn the water in the tub, hot water. I'd take a towel, soak it in that, and hang it on the radiator. And in 30 minutes, that thing was as hard as this. And you'd go back, but you'd have to get 30-40%, and you always took a washcloth, a wet washcloth, to put over your face so that you had some sinuses left. Yeah.
I got some.
Yes, sir.
You started off as a young F4 Rio. You ended up in this giant program. What would you tell a kid today, like a young Marine future fighter pilot or something? What would you tell them that you learned through your whole life and your experience in dealing with these kind of people?
Well, the best way to appreciate life is to pay attention. And if you pay attention to what's going on around you and what interests others, you have a key to dealing with things. I ran into Lieutenant General Tom Stafford in 1990, and he was in charge of a study for the Vice President of the United States on coming up with some architectures for putting humans on Mars. And Stafford had half of Noah's Ark as far as science went. He had one of everything. And I mean, we had the guys from nuclear places and you name it and all that kind of stuff. And I had met him through George Abbey and had a cocktail or two. Abbey invites me to go talk to Stafford in his office because they're just setting up shop. And I talked to him, and he went over my background, and the operational thing worked. And he needed some people who were seen as civilians who actually had a military background, because I could have stepped on either sideline and been seen as a player for that team. I was one of 4 contractors that were permanent to his study, and everybody else was a government person from the Department of Energy, you name it. And so I then ended up as one of the 6 people in the editorial review board for the document that we wrote. And that all went real well, and it's kind of funny in that I was donated by Cubic. Cubic paid my salary and per diem the whole time I was in Washington, D.C. doing this. But I got a reputation for doing things and understanding things and being able to ask the right question or figure the person, how does this make sense? And the report was tremendous. But the one vignette that Stafford wasn't happy about, but it was kind of funny, was he's talking about, this report will have no acronyms. The report, we got an English professor out of George Washington University to turn technicalese into actual things that people could read and understand. And not one, didn't say EVA, and everybody knows extravehicular activity, a guy hanging on a tether outside. And so I said, well, the only thing that we don't have, Tom, is we don't have T-cube Del figured out. And he says, what the hell is T-cube Del? And I said, today's turd, tomorrow's lunch. You gotta close the life support system some way. And he said, and he reels up and he goes, that's not in there. I said, okay, no, it's not. So, but if you could have seen his face, next question. I think I'll have one of those. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, speaking of the report, nice guy was kind enough to hand me that report. Let me go through it, and it's kind of refreshing because it doesn't contain any I thinks, I believes. We should consider this. It is the straight up. This is how we are going to put people on Mars. Period. You're going to have to use the moon as the launching place because it's too hard to do it from here. It's as straight up as it gets. It's a really, really cool report, and I thank nice guy for sharing it. Neat stuff. Hey, great evening. Lico, thank you very much. Appreciate everything you're doing. Obi, Bonnie, thanks. Piece of cake with only 50 folks. Easy. Appreciate it. Mumbles, congratulations again. Well deserved. Hopefully one day we'll be flying formation off that camouflage Phantom at the Chappie James Park someday. So well done. Good on you. And good luck to you going forward. Appreciate it. T-Bird, thanks. All that paperwork, all worth it. Foundation's got a lot of money. We're going to find wealthier people. David's going to be one of them. See what happens. Congratulations to you, David, mom, dad, granddad. Cool stuff. And everybody else. Bad Bob, great program. It was a great conversation we had between Bad Bob and I, who've known each other for who knows how long. We won't even tell because it dates us too bad. But when we had a conversation right after the Daedalians decided not to do the flying training program, you talk about two guys of a like mind saying, screw the rules, we're doing this. And David Lamb is a product of that, and even Eva will be right behind you. So that all worked, pretty good. And to everybody else, to D-Day, thank you very much. Diane, hopefully you'll join us. As you can tell, we have way too much fun going here. Stiffy, good stuff. Thanks for being here with us. Great night. Thank you very much, everybody. We will meet again on October the 14th, and General Spider Nyland will be our guest speaker. He will talk about his travels around the globe with the new one-star brigadiers and flag officers as he running the capstone program. Of course, COVID's kind of putting the kibosh on that, but he's got a lot of good stories to tell about the briefings and travels they take with the new flag and general officers around the planet. Should be pretty fascinating, and of course, Spider's a great guy anyway. But have a great evening. Have a great time out there. Be safe. Take care of yourselves and have fun. Enjoy. We're good.